Hi, good morning and welcome. I'm so excited. There's so many people here that, were with us from the first day, like Einav and Nadav, and it's exciting to see, everything from social activists to some of our dear clients, from chefs, scientists to, brand managers, and quite a few investors as well in the room, and people from the finance world, and all the way to a lot of data nerds from my team who are, happen to be also foodies and enjoying the journey. So welcome everyone, thank you for coming. We tried to put together the agenda that we wish, we would hear, many years ago. And we have a lineup of what we believe is the best content out there. And you saw the agenda, so it will be. But while we're talking here today, there is a massive storm outside. Today is a beautiful day, but there is a storm. It's a storm of lack of supplies. I don't know if you're working actually in making food, but even this morning there were news articles about people fighting to get food in fighting, like physically fighting to get food in so many places in the world. Obviously, prices has gone up. I'll share with you some insights from our data in a moment. Recession coming. So there's a really storm, right? And to add to that, we have also the technological revolution, right? It's called the Web 3.0. We're not going to go too much into Web 3.0 because we want to talk about Food 3.0. And Food 3.0 is an exciting era of connected food, but we can't start with 3.0 before starting at Food 1.0. So Food 1.0 was in a time where one product with a few flavors distributed in very few channels, one or two, or probably just the around the corner grocer, and maybe a restaurant table was enough. But really, if we look at one of the most iconic moments in the Food 1.0, anyone recognizes what this is? Who did it? Andy Warhol. If you haven't watched the documentary recently, you should really do. So at the time when Andy Warhol in 1962 came up with the Campbell's ad, they had 32 flavors. And it was a very robust product line. It was enough to feed a whole nation. You put a few billboards, you tell people what you have, they don't have any other options on the table, and it's easy to make a business. But in a world of 2.5 today, we are in a much more exciting era where there's a lot more options, and the consumers are very much privileged to have a lot of different channels. So here's the thing. Today, 20% of retail is e-commerce. I remember back in 2006, I worked for Google. And I remember that e-commerce was less than 1% of the industry. And what happened, and it may look very complex graph, and it's a McKinsey report. What happened is that in 1 year, from 2019 to 2020, e-commerce went from 13-14% in the US to 20% in the US. And that pretty much includes a lot of people like my mom that never thought she would order DoorDash and Instacart. And she simply had to do that. She didn't have any other choice. But she also got a new habit. And this new habit is getting her to change a lot of her behavior over time. And by the way, 20% is kind of the global statistics. You have countries which are a little bit more advanced, like China, where nearly a third of the commerce is e-commerce, which is quite staggering. In that context, many businesses were able to adjust. And they adjusted really fast. And the one industry that was so concerned about the pandemic was actually the food service industry. I just spoke to Matthew. He's going to talk to us later. And he was just saying, this beautiful venue upstairs was closed for 2 years. They just finished renovating the place, and they had to lock it down because no one would come up. And it was very sad. But also, those that innovated and moved fast, like food service, made it big, and they stayed in business. So our data shows that in 2020, before the pandemic hit, 1 out of 10 restaurants were available on 3 major food platforms at the same time. So if you're, let's say Matthew Kenny restaurant, you were both on Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash. All right? All together, 1 out of 10. Any guess how many of the restaurants today are available on all 3 delivery platforms at the same time, any given moment? 41%. So what happened is that the change in the industry really forced everyone to become a lot more agile and to adopt technology. And if a restaurant was maybe digital savvy, now they had to become digital first. And was a quite complex environment. It's also the time, Food 2.5, that one recipe, who recognizes this behind me? Okay, that's not enough. It's not enough, you guys. So what you see behind me is a recipe or a video that basically caused to shortages of feta cheese all over the nation. One recipe that got viral on TikTok, YouTube, actually got us to a place where really there's simply not enough of the product to be produced. So it's a generation and a time where things happening really fast if you know how to do it well. But it's not all about TikTok and YouTube and the gram and the Instagram, right? It's also the time where people, even in France, quite a traditional, more conservative market, don't quote me, right? Changed and adapted because of the pandemic and needed new solutions. So for instance, what you see behind me, the green bar chart, is basically bien-être, basically well-being in French. So the need to get food as a medicine, food as a solution is becoming a thing, and stress relief in blue. So they obviously started with the things that we're more familiar with, like lavender, but they also very quickly moved into ashwagandha, ginseng, and actually one of the big trends we're seeing is that there's a huge comeback to tribal and more traditional ingredients, Ayurvedic from India. Everything you look is actually happening. It started, with the curcumin, turmeric, but it's not stopping there, and it's really making big waves. It was also the time where consumers stopped talking about health. Can it be? No, right? So what do I mean when I say the end of healthy eating? People are, stop talking about health. They're way more sophisticated. They don't say that they want healthy food anymore. There are 80 different sub-claims for health that they talk about today. They talk about stress relief. They talk about sleep improvement. They talk about medicinal health. Gut health. Who thought that we would talk about our gut, in social media and being bloated? It's the time where they really are a lot more granular, a lot more sophisticated in the kind of foods and beverages they're consuming and the purpose. So overall, healthy eating is up 30% from prior to the pandemic. But it's becoming a lot more granular. And if you want to design the right product, you need to be able to adjust your value proposition. And it may be the same product, but different people actually will be consuming it for different things. So the Andy Warhol, ad that you saw earlier is no longer relevant. We need to be in a dynamic way. And if that was not enough, that may look like a supermarket, plant-based milk shelf, but it's also looks like our fridge at Tastewise. Anyone who's hiring and employing Gen Zs, it's a mess. You don't know which milk to buy, really. I really don't. And it's it's funny on one end, but it's really complex. It's really complex to know what do you make for who. Is this a big enough platform? But here's the bad news: is that there's no blockbusters. It's not going to be one product that will make it big. It's going to be many products with different claims and so on. So the interesting thing about plant-based and the reason why we asked Matthew Kinney to actually host us here is because, we always go to plant-based, to future food tech, conferences, and we talk about the future of food tech, and then we go to have lunch, and we have the same things we've been having. It's a sandwich. I was just in Wageningen, right? Howard, you were not there this time, but it's a campus about food and food tech in the Netherlands. And we came for lunch, and it was the same ham with a lot of mayo or whatever it was, and that was lunch. And we said, okay, that can be. But it also brings me to another point that 3 months ago, we went to Future Food Tech in San Francisco, and we did a little quiz for the people in the audience. There were about 100 people that actually participated. We gave away an Apple product, so people came, for the prize. There's going to be, I think, a quiz later on today as well. But 100 people, all of them are from the food industry. All of them are innovators. They're not juniors. They're people that actually, someone paid a ticket for them to go to a conference because they work on the future of food. And we asked them what we believed and we thought was the most basic question. What is the main reason for consumers to pick plant-based? Only 20% of them knew the answer. We gave them 3 options. We gave them sustainability, animal welfare, and health. Only 20% knew that health was the main reason. By the way, health is not a little bit higher. Health is 5 times more than animal welfare and sustainability combined. So these people are working on innovating in a space, and they don't know the main reason why consumers are going to buy it. They get confused because if they were selling or promoting a product for vegans, maybe the answer was, yeah, obviously vegan, but they're building products for the masses. So they don't know the answers for the high-level category, let alone what is the reason that their consumers will be buying. And they're working in a space that to get the basic answers, they need to spend weeks and months to be able to get the answers. It's also the time where, if you look behind me, actually I took this picture in San Francisco, where I met Sanjeev a couple of weeks ago. And it basically says, it's a Burmese restaurant. It's highly recommended. I really like it. Burmese food, really good. And they put a sign outside. They said, fryer oil was $21 12 months ago, $50 today. A case of chicken was $75 12 months ago, $107 today. And then they said tea prices have doubled and the cost of shipping from Burma has increased by 733%, right? 8 times more. And basically they said if a restaurant adds a few dollars to your meal, it's not because they want to get rich, it is to continue to stay in business. And this is the reality. We just pulled the data yesterday for the average price of a soda can. It went up in 34% in the last 30 days. Now, that's a big number, right? It's crazy. It's really nuts. And I see Goldman, right, Lee? Thinking, how do we monetize it? And which is a good thing. We also do monetize it because I get a phone call every single day from customer of ours, the biggest brands in the world, that do not know how much the product costs for the end consumer. It's 2022 now, right? How could it be? How can you not monitor your data on a day-to-day basis? Just 3.4 million menu items actually change prices. You have to be on top of it to be able to adjust and comply. But there is also, let's see if it works. There's also another massive phenomena. If you want to be where your consumers are, what you see behind me is Wendy's in the metaverse. By the way, the metaverse is not a new thing. How many of you have heard of the metaverse in the past? All of you, right? So metaverse is not new. It's just a new tag name for something, right? Why is it? People were, in America, okay, let's take just America. 22% of Americans spend 7 to 20 hours a week playing games. We used to call it video games, now we just call it games because no one plays outside of any other games, right? Right? 7 to 20 hours a week. It's a lot. And by the way, when their parents come to them, and I have my nieces and nephews, and say, why don't you play with your friends? And say, what do you mean? I play with my friends. They play with their friends. People in Japan have remote relationships, and they will never meet their partners, and it's their partners, right? And it's not the future, it's the present. And Wendy's and what McDonald's did with actually creating virtual goods that actually people can buy in games, these games are the world, right? They modify the games. There's like whole worlds. They change the logic, and it's a $1 trillion business, right? And it's not that you may need to be there. It's not a marketing gig. Don't get it wrong. It's a business venture. If you're not going to be there at some point, if you're not going to find out that your consumers are there, they're spending their time there, and they're just going to click on the next meal, and they're just not going to choose your brand. So knowing where your consumers is actually quite critical. And that brings me almost, I see I get signals that I need to wrap up. It brings me to the almost to the end where, real-time data is no longer optional. Organizations that adopt real-time data today and they weave it into their production lines, what should we make? When they weave it into the distribution, where is my product served? How much does it cost? What is actually the way it's being positioned? And all the way to getting very close to their consumers, they're going to win the game. They're ready. They're already ready for today. But they're not just ready for today. They're also ready for the tomorrow. The tomorrow where, our fridge will be ordering the groceries for us automatically, where Siri will order us, a drone-delivered meal, maybe with the nutrients that our friend Gil there from Insight Tracker will tell them, based on the blood test, what are the daily nutrients that they need to have. And it may sound like, just very far future, but it's already today. And already today, the data needs to be part of everyday decision making. If it's not, if it's just in the BI team, the business intelligence team is done, you're getting it all wrong. It needs to be embedded in your day-to-day decisions. If you need to go and run a survey for 100 people, you saw how many milk types there are. How do you know what to make? And this is what a lot of our industry is still doing today. It's a lot of old, very dated methodologies. They feel very comfortable about it. They feel it's very statistically significant because the formulas are designed for the 90s. But it really is not optional. Any organization which will not adapt into this new mindset of real-time data embedded in everyday decision, and it needs to be easy because not every single person knows how to analyze data, right? It needs to be actionable. It needs to be taught. Thanks all for coming, and enjoy the rest of your day.